So let's talk about optimism. We all think we've got it figured out, right? It's just seeing the glass as half full, looking on the bright side. But what if it's more than that? What if it's not just some personality quirk you're born with, but a skill you can actually learn? Well, we're going to dive in and unpack what optimism is really all about.
You know the classic question, is the glass half full or half empty? Well, here's a fun kind of nerdy take on it. Technically, the glass is always full. You've got water and you've got air. It's a clever little reminder that your perspective, how you choose to see things, literally changes everything. And that's exactly what we're going to explore, the science behind how we see the world.
What's really fascinating is that to truly understand optimism, we have to start by looking at its total opposite. We need to get a handle on what happens in our minds when we feel like we have absolutely no control at all.
And this cartoon just nails that feeling perfectly. Look at these folks. They're stuck behind a wall that they've just accepted as reality. They're not trying to climb it. They're not looking for a way around it. They're just waiting. This is the heart of a psychological trap called learned helplessness, and it is the single biggest barrier to being optimistic.
So what exactly is learned helplessness? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's that moment you just give up because you're convinced that nothing you do is going to matter anyway. It's that deep down feeling that the game is rigged, so why even bother playing? It's the ultimate what's the point moment.
And let's be really clear about something. This is a universal human thing. Every single one of us, when we fail or hit a setback, we feel that little pang of helplessness. It's totally normal. The real difference between an optimist and a pessimist isn't if they feel it, it's how long they let that feeling stick around.
But here's the good news. That feeling of helplessness, it doesn't have to be the end of the story. In fact, it's just the beginning. Because beyond all the stuff that happens to us, there's this huge unclaimed territory of what happens inside our minds. And that's the space we can actually learn to take control of. And look, this isn't just some motivational poster quote. This is a massive finding from modern psychology. Martin Seligman, who's a pioneer in this field, basically found that we can choose how we think. This idea is a total game changer. It means our thoughts aren't just random reactions, they're skills. And if they're skills, they can be practiced and improved.
So yeah, there are tons of things in life we can't control. You can't control the weather, you can't control traffic. But this reminds us that we have this enormous inner world of our thoughts, our reactions, and our stories that is completely under our command. It all comes down to how we interpret things.
And that is why this matters so much. Life is going to throw tough stuff at everybody, that's a given. But the optimist, kind of like this flower pushing its way through solid concrete, finds a way to bounce back. They're resilient. The pessimist, facing that same concrete, is just much more likely to give up.
Okay, so we know optimism is a huge part of resilience, but how do scientists actually pin it down? Turns out they look at it in two really different ways, and getting both is pretty key. So the two big ideas are dispositional optimism and explanatory style. Just think of dispositional optimism as your general vibe. It's a personality trait, that basic gut feeling that things will probably work out. But explanatory style, no, that's different. That's not a trait, it's a habit. It's the story you tell yourself to explain why things happen, good or bad.
Let's dig into that dispositional optimism for a sec. It's that general sunny outlook, and it's often shaped when we're really young. It's linked to all sorts of good stuff, like better health, and people with it tend to see a tough situation as a chance to grow. But what's really cool is that it's not about being naive. It's also about being smart enough to know when to stop banging your head against a wall and try something else. It's a flexible kind of strength.
All right, now for the second approach. And honestly, this is where things get really practical and empowering for every single one of us. Let's get into your explanatory style. Why? Because unlike a personality trait, this is a thinking habit, and habits can be changed.
Okay, seriously, if there is one thing you remember from this whole explainer, make it this slide. This is the entire playbook. When something bad happens, the difference between a pessimistic and an optimistic reaction comes down to three things. The pessimist thinks the cause is internal. It's all my fault. They think it's stable. It's going to be like this forever. And they think it's global. This one thing is going to ruin everything. The optimist, they flip all three of those scripts.
Let's make this super clear with a simple example. Say you get a bad grade on a test. The pessimistic voice goes, I screwed up, that's internal. I've done poorly before, that's stable. I'm no good at anything, that's global. Now, listen to how the optimist explains the exact same event. That paper was tricky, external. I've done better before, that's variable or temporary.
I'll work more on this, but my other subjects are fine. Specific. You see that? Same event, completely different internal worlds.
And this isn't just some abstract idea. It's something scientists can actually measure. They use tools like the Attributional Style questionnaire, the ASQ for short, to map out these thinking patterns. They'll give you a hypothetical bad situation, like having a hard time finding a job, and then they'll analyze your explanation using those same 3 dimensions we just talked about.
So here it is, the most crucial takeaway. If your explanatory style is just a learned habit, well, any habit can be unlearned, and a new one can be learned in its place. And that brings us to the most powerful part of all this, how you can actually actively learn to be more optimistic.
This is where the science becomes really life-changing. Researchers like Seligman didn't just point out the problem, they built the solution. They created actual programs based on proven therapy techniques that help people systematically shift their thinking from pessimistic to optimistic. The big idea here is incredible. Optimism isn't just something you have, it's something you can do.
The main technique has a bit of a fancy name, attributional retraining. But don't let that intimidate you. All it really means is learning how to have a constructive argument with that negative voice in your head. It's about challenging its pessimistic assumptions instead of just accepting them as fact.
And here's your toolkit for that internal debate. It's a 4-step process they call disputation. So when a negative thought pops into your head, you can challenge it. First, look for evidence. Wait, what are the actual facts here? What's the proof for this thought, and what's the proof against it? Then, look for alternatives. Is there another, less disastrous way to look at this? Next, consider the implications. Okay, let's say my negative thought is true. Is it really the end of the world, or is it just a temporary problem? And finally, my favorite one, usefulness. Is believing this thought actually helping me get where I want to go?
Look, at the end of the day, learning optimism is all about recognizing the incredible power you have to write your own internal story. It's a skill. And just like learning to play the guitar or speaking a new language, it takes conscious practice. But it's a practice that can completely change how you experience the world.
So, to wrap this all up, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. What is one story you tell yourself, one of those automatic negative explanations that, using the tools we just talked about, you could start to explain in a completely different, more empowering way? The answer to that question might just be your first step.